Hello humans, it's just Martine and welcome to my week 2 Whatever You Want-a-thon vlog. Really quick rundown, if you want to know anything about Whatever You Want-a-thon, I'm going to link my previous vlog about it up there. It's a month-long readathon in June hosted by Maddie from Book Browsing Blog. I am on the team Comrades of Chaos, and last week I read 7 books. So we're gonna see what we can do this week. Let me tell you what I'm reading right now. Physically, I'm about a quarter of the way into Loveless by Alice Oseman and super excited about where this is going. I'm also one short story into Fresh Complaint by Jeffrey Eugenides, and that short story was good. On audiobook, I'm listening to Pumpkin. I started that this morning. On ebook, I'm reading You Asked Me for Perfect. I started that while I was at the doctor's office this morning, and I'm 20% of the way into that and liking it a lot so far. Out of the books I'm reading, aside from this book of short stories, I haven't heard much about that, which is interesting because the main character is bisexual and Jewish, and he has issues with perfectionism, and that's really at the heart of the story, is his issues with perfectionism. And I'm enjoying that representation so far. The way he thinks is like very anxiety inducing, so if that's triggering to you, maybe avoid it. I struggle with perfectionism a lot, and reading his thoughts is making me a little anxious, but it's also helping me like remember how ridiculous the thoughts that I struggle with are sometimes, and seeing it from an outside perspective is very different. And also it's nice to see that representation, so I'm enjoying it so far. But I'll let you know when I read something else. Happy Tuesday, it's 4:30 p.m. and I'm just picking up the camera to talk to you now. So I didn't update you last night, and I haven't talked to you today yet, so let me tell you about a little of what I've been reading. One, I don't know how far I am in my audiobook. Again, I'm listening to Pumpkin, but what I've listened to so far I've really enjoyed. I think it's interesting to hear a gay character talk about their experience trying drag, and I'm interested to see where the plotline goes too. Additionally, I love the conversations. I didn't read Dumplin', which is the first related book. I don't know if it's the author's first book, but I know it's a related book to this one. I like the discussions about plus-sized youth and growing up and how that stacks with different marginalizations. So the main character in this book is fat and gay and fabulous, and I'm loving the conversations that he's having about how other gay people view him and how non-queer people view him, with both of those things added together, especially in his small southern town. So it's been really interesting. My ebook that I'm reading is You Asked for Perfect. I think I mentioned that the main character's anxiety about perfectionism was a lot, but really well done, and I stand by that. I've only so far read 1 chapter today, and I'm at, I think, 28% of that book so far. But I really enjoy the discussions that are being had about the fact that the character thinks that the only thing worse than failing is failing in front of an audience. That's a mindset that I've worked for a very long time to try and combat as well, so I find it highly relatable, and I'm interested to see his journey as he grows and changes and maybe discovers that his worth is not all in his grades and stuff. A revelation I'm still working on, but we're getting there. I did read one more story this morning in Fresh Complaint, so I'm now 3 stories in on page like 80 and loving it. The last story I read was really weird, but I liked it nevertheless. I'm also on page 250 of Loveless by Alice Oseman, and I'm liking this book a lot. Not only is it having conversations about asexuality and aromanticism, but also like there are things happening in the other characters' lives that are building towards conversations, like conversations about appearing to have lots of people in your life but feeling desperately lonely and just wanting to be known on a deeper level. And there are so many weird casual things I relate to when it comes to the main character of this book, Georgia. I don't know if it's just because she's a relatable character for me or if it's a larger generalization at play in my mind or something. But there are some things like the way that she dresses and the way that she thinks about some things and the way that she interacts with the world and her friends, and this kind of standoffishness in her that I relate to. And it's really nice to read about that. So she's a great character to read from the perspective of, even if you're not looking for a story about sexuality and self-discovery. And there was one scene I read today that was like, it would seem like somebody who doesn't know the experience to be a really silly scene to get emotional about. It was about something that I've always been really like uncomfortable and unsure about for myself, and the chapter came along with revelations, things that other characters were saying to the main character, Georgia, about how they experience life versus how she experiences life. Just kind of blew my mind a little bit. And I loved that. And then I've been reading Emergence Infection or Infection Emergence. It's one of those for a different video, but I've been reading that on the iPad and it's okay so far. It's a post-apocalyptic story and I got it for free. We're living life. Happy Wednesday. I just finished Emergence Infection. I'm giving it 2.5 out of 5 stars. A pretty solid read, but nothing special. And I'll update you when I read more later. It's just past 1 p.m. and I finished Loveless by Alice Oseman. Make no mistake, this was a quick read, like easy writing style to read, short chapters, and although it's a bit long, it's like 430 pages, like a quick read could fly through. Whenever I sat down to read it, I flew through it. The reason that it took me a few days to read this book is because I didn't want to rush it, right? I wanted to give this book the time it deserved for me to read it and think about it and love it. This counted for a 5-star prediction. My prediction was right. Team colors, LGBTQIA plus characters and author. Its own voices, asexual, aromantic representation about a university student and her friend group. And I think my favorite concept in this whole book was the concept of platonic magic, because it's something I think about a lot. Like, romantic relationships are great and they've been a nice contribution to my life, but platonic magic is its own brand of life-giving love. Sometimes you need platonic magic. The love that you can give another person just for existing, that is truly platonic magic, and like, it makes me feel good inside. It's why I love reading about friend groups so much and found family tropes, is because platonic magic, love that you give people, and there's nothing attached to it. It's just love that you share, and I loved this book desperately, and I'm glad I get to keep it forever and ever and ever, and I'm just happy I loved it. I think this is my first clip on the swing in this vlog, so hooray, we're back on the swing. I've been reading inside most of the day, and it's finally time to sit outside and read some Fresh Complaint. It's a little past 5 p.m. and I recently finished Pumpkin, and I also gave that 5 stars. Big day for handing out 5 stars, I guess, for all these queer books that I'm reading. But I loved the discussions that the character had about being fat and queer, and the way that he confronted people about how they made him feel about that. And I loved how strong he was as a character, even when he believed he wasn't strong. And I loved his support system. I loved his relationship with his twin sister and with his parents and with his grandma, and the love interest was so cute. Like, the romance in it was just a small part, which is exactly how I like it, and so good, and only added to the story and didn't take anything away from it. Yes, and I think my next audiobook is actually like also a book with a pink cover, also about prom king. It's either prom or homecoming royalty that it's about, but either way, weird similarity. I think it's also a pretty recent book called like May the Best Man Win, but this one is about a transgender main character. I'm interested to see that because Pumpkin was a queer book and specifically focused on the role of drag and drag queens in queer culture, and so I'm interested to see the transgender perspective on such a gendered concept as high school dance royalty in America. Because I finished Loveless today, my next physical book that I'll be reading is, I think, called like Too Many Letters and Goodbye or something. You're going to get so annoyed with me for saying this, but I'm reading that specifically for another video, so you won't hear much about it. I am reading it and I wanted to give you that update. I also read 2 more short stories in Fresh Complaint, and both of them were interesting in their own ways. One of the things that I'm liking about these short story collections that I'm reading is how many deep and interesting topics you can cover when you have like 8 or so short stories in a book. So like I mentioned that this one had already covered dementia, and it covers an artist's relationship with art and debt. Lots of interesting societal commentary happening, multiple different ones in each short story, and again, different ones across the different short stories. So that's been really interesting to see, and I'm enjoying it. Happy Thursday. It's about 10:30 a.m. on Thursday, and I just finished You Asked for Perfect by Laura Silverman, and I gave it 5 stars. Here's the deal, because I just read a 2-star review from a very popular booktuber about this book, and I think she makes some pretty good points. The romance is kind of weird, not necessarily necessary, or the fact that maybe the character didn't grow as much as she wanted him to, and that the character made a decision during like one of the most important moments of the book that she thought was out of character. And I realize how that might be the case. But the thing is, genuinely, for a person who struggled with perfectionism my whole life, it is at the weirdest moments that you get the realization that the things that you've been thinking are important are not important, and that there are things that are more important, and that it's not worth risking those things for this perfect, ideal future that you've dreamed of for yourself. And I think it was actually the perfect decision for the character. I also liked the romance for a couple reasons. Yes, the main character kept messing up with it. He was not being a good partner, but none of the people he was being terrible to let him get away with that behavior. He would apologize to them, and none of them said, "It's okay, you were going through something." All of them said, "Yes, what you did was not okay, and I'm upset about it." For that to be in a YA, like, I think that's huge. He didn't just do something big and that suddenly made the people he cared about forgive him. He did things over time, apologized, accepted the responsibility for the things that he did, and then continued to try and push and do extra things to make them see how much he truly didn't mean to sacrifice their feelings for the things that he was going through at the time. There was not a single character that said, "What you're feeling is unique and you were alone and you had a right to act like that." All of them said, "We're all feeling this way and we're really sorry you went through this, but you do have a responsibility to take ownership for the things that you did, and you do have a responsibility to yourself and to others to work on getting better at those things." And I really appreciated that conversation. I also thought that an important part of the romance was, so first there was a partner who was willing to be forgiving but also firm about their own feelings in a situation where bad mental health was at play for the main character. But then also you had this casually bisexual main character. Like, it was talked about fairly often. He talked about how it related to his family, what coming out was like and stuff, but him discovering his sexuality or coming out was not the main plot of the story. So he was more casually queer, and I really appreciated that. There was a reference when his mom said something, because the love interest in this book is a male, and so she said something about him being gay, and he reminded her, "Mom, I'm bisexual," and he was talking about, she was trying to get her head wrapped around that, and that's fair because he had tried to get his head wrapped around that too. And so just a lot of interesting conversations. Then the Jewish representation was genuinely fantastic. I'm not Jewish. I read some other people's reviews of it, and I believe its own voice is Jewish representation. The author provided her grandma's recipe for matzo ball soup at the end, since she talked about it so much. And that was great to see how his religious community, the main character's religious community, played into the struggles and how they supported him. Like, it was a genuinely healthy religious community, and his rabbi was reaching out to him and checking up on him and his family, not just the adults, but even, you know, the teenagers, the kids. She was really making sure that he was okay, and that she pushed him to get the help that he needed, and I really appreciated that. I do think at the end, maybe his shift from his perfectionist mindset was a little complete, but I also think not really, because there was this acknowledgement that he's still nervous about it, he's still worried about it, and some days are better than others when it comes to perfectionism, and I feel the same way. Since admitting that I have problems with perfectionism, it is gotten substantially better. There are some days when those thoughts are more troublesome than others, but overall, it is the sense that you do not have to be making yourself sick for the sake of your grades, the other things in your life, and trying to do everything all at once. Because the point in the story he was trying to make was that he was applying for Harvard, and Harvard wanted him to be perfect. The reality was that he wanted himself to be perfect, and he thought that the other people around him wanted him to be perfect, and that he would let them all down if he wasn't perfect. But the truth was that in trying to be perfect, he let them down. He let himself down. And I really, really, really loved that. So I'd highly recommend this book. It just had a lot of different interesting conversations, so many good things happening, and really, I don't know, it was really well done. So I gave it 5 stars. I've talked about this book for so long now. It's been over 6 minutes. Just a lot to think about, a lot to dissect. So good stuff. It's almost 5:30. I just finished Fresh Complaint, both the book and the short story, because Fresh Complaint was the last short story in the book, and it was the longest one. It was like 50 pages, and it was so messed up. Like, so messed up. Really well done. It was about this girl whose family was Indian, and her mom arranged a marriage for her, and she felt trapped in it, and she wanted to get out of having to marry this person. She did something really, really bad and terrible to another person to try and get them in trouble so that she could blamelessly not have this marriage. And it was horrific to read about, but great too. And this book was really interesting. It had lots of representation of different kinds. I don't know how good any of it was. There was dementia, debt, discussions on intersexuality. Yeah, so 4 stars, another book read. It's almost 9:30 p.m., so I'm gonna give you my last update for the night. I'm about 100 pages into How Many Letters Are in Goodbye. I'm about 5% of the way into Messages, which is an ebook I'm reading, and then I'm going to start, I think it's a middle grade called Disaster Days, while I'm sitting here trying to fall asleep, so I'll tell you about it tomorrow. It's Sunday afternoon, no, evening. It's Sunday evening, and I didn't get to update you because I was on a trip with some people. I am fully vaccinated and I wore masks in most places and such, but it was a fun time, and I included some random clips from that I thought to take, but for the most part I was just enjoying my time with the people I was around. And now, I don't know if you could just hear him, but I'm at Harris's, so I'm going to be here for a few days. Here I am, and I'm going to wrap up this vlog by telling you that on, was it Friday? I did finish reading The Disaster Days, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was a really solid middle grade book and had some interesting conversations about how we tell kids how to handle responsibility when they're growing up. Like we always say, if you can't handle it, like tell an adult. And then, did you see that? And then this character is put in a situation where there are no adults to ask for help. There's no way to call 911, etc. It was really interesting seeing her navigate that. Yeah, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below. Have you read any of the books I read this week? If so, what were your thoughts on them? If not, which one intrigued you most? How was your reading week? How are you doing? If you're participating in the readathon, let me know how it's going for you. And subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!